Hi, Jakey Stief here, the long-haired freaky dude. Today I'm going to review what is perhaps one of the best novels that I have ever read. 1984 by Eric Blair, alias George Orwell. 1984 is a piece of dystopian fiction where the future has become a depressing soup of totalitarianism and technological quartering. Every aspect of people's lives is big brothered. Everything they do is monitored, from what they say to what they do, and even their heartbeats and their breathing patterns, so that they can detect what it is that they're feeling. In fact, it was the novel 1984 which invented the term Big Brother, which we so commonly use today. Big Brother is the watchful head of society. But what I like so much about this novel wasn't the technological predictions that it made or the society which came from it, but the story itself. As far as technology goes, it has a few things spot on. From TVs in every house, each with a microphone and a camera which can monitor our every move. Xbox. Wireless waves, that sort of thing. And granted that it was written in 1949, it does have some interesting predictions, but not too much futuristic technology. Fahrenheit 451 does a much better job of that. So if you want a book which has a lot of technological predictions, read Fahrenheit 451. Now, I love Fahrenheit 451. It's what inspired me to start my book reviewing channel. But 1984, this puts that book to shame. In terms of character development, their interaction with the society and the government's interaction with the character, I think this is much more believable than Fahrenheit 451. And in the end, I think that's what makes the best novels enjoyable. Not the believability of the setting, but the believability of the characters. Now, Fahrenheit 451 still has great characters. I still rank it up there among the best. But 1984, it's got emotions. Winston Smith, Big Brother, the others, spot on. You really can become connected with these characters. Perhaps the thing most superior to the enjoyability of this book is the ending. It doesn't follow the typical dystopian novel ending, the cliche, if you will. And it's because of this that it increases its believability. The ending was super depressing. Like, I wanted to cry. But even so, it was the inevitable conclusion. It couldn't have ended any other way. This is the way that it was meant to end. The way it needed to end. Perhaps the best ending to get across the point that Orwell wanted to get across. Or perhaps the best way to convey the point of any dystopian novel for that matter. I think most dystopian writers are scared of a depressing conclusion. Now in other dystopian novels, yeah, we have lovable characters who die, but society is saved. At least in the end. They want to tell stories of heroes, rebellion, and government takedown. They're great stories, but they just don't seem to fit the setting in most cases. 1984 is the most believable way for a dystopian to end. That last line. Heartbreaking. The last line. Ugh. That last line. But to the beginning. The story begins with this iconic line, which you'll probably recognize even if you haven't read the book. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. I suppose that's a little obtuse, but keep in mind that Europe usually uses military time. So to an American, it's weird striking 13, but maybe over there they converted to 24-hour clocks finally. Anyway. It follows a man named Winston Smith whose job is to change the past. No, he doesn't go back in time with a time machine to change the past. He merely edits it in the history books, and that is just as good as going back in time in a time machine. Because all really history does is it affects the mindset of people in the present. So once you change that, you change the context, you can change the mindset. This immediately sets the stage for the kind of society that we're dealing with. The past is always updated so that it is right. Not left, right. As Big Brother's slogan goes, who controls the past, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past. And another quote concerning the matter. If all others accepted the lie which the party imposed, if all records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history and became truth. There's nothing to say otherwise, then why doubt it? As Kevin Hart said in The Wedding Ringer, people believe because they don't have a reason not to. Winston has always had deep underlying thoughts that something about the current government was wrong. But he doesn't have the courage to act upon it until he finally discovers what love is, and hope. And The way that Orwell depicts Winston's love is extraordinary, to say the least. I was feeling it right there with him, man. Right in the heartstrings. It hit my heart heavy, ate me up inside, and then ripped me to shreds. It wasn't ordinary love. It was a much more mysterious, forbidden love, which I think greatly increases the desire. I compare the feeling to what I felt whenever I read Euripides' Bacchae, or the feeling that I get while watching/listening to Phantom of the Opera, one of the most heartbreaking moments in history. Christine, I love you. Anyways, sorry. Phantom of the Opera always makes me tear up. Love might seem irrelevant in the beginning, but it actually becomes a quite necessary component for the end. But, definitely, big crush on Winston's love interest, Julia. She's a very likable character. You love it. You love her. As for the themes of society, there are many interesting components. I could spit out quotes all day, but then again, I might as well just read the whole book. But here's one of my favorites. The truly characteristic thing about modern life was not its cruelty and insecurity, but simply its bareness, its dinginess, its listlessness. I think this is a perfect description of a dystopian society, and it scares me because I can almost apply it to our society. It makes me very sad. Maybe even sadder than the Phantom of the Opera. I think that's just simply the best summary of the society that we're dealing with. Not something inherently cruel, just bare, without emotion. The horrible thing about 1984 isn't Big Brother, isn't the monitoring, isn't the control, it's the lack of emotion that everyone feels. Or rather, emotions that no one feels. Love is gone. Happiness and joy are but facades. Even sadness, anger, is gone. Shells just walking around. And then I see people today, you know, this digital world, we're just texting back and forth, emailing on our phones all the time. Now, don't get me wrong, this technology is great. It opens us up to many new opportunities that we never had before, but when it's abused, it takes away the emotion. Now, I've read a lot of psychology studies about people who use the internet all the time, and whenever they did neuroimaging of them, there was just nothing lighting up in the limbic system. There was no emotion going on in them. At least much less than someone who doesn't use the internet all the time, someone who actually interacts with people face to face. Now, once again, I'm not against the internet or smartphones. I'm just saying limit your use. Use it carefully. Too much and it could get out of hand. Well, that's enough of that. And there's just one thing which I would like to note about 1984. This book is not anti-socialism as many people like to boast. It's anti-totalitarianism, which is a completely different thing from socialism. Comparing socialism to totalitarianism is like comparing communism to socialism, or perhaps anarchy to capitalism. So don't go attributing this to one party or another, because George Orwell himself was a socialist. Rather, pick out and analyze individual points, point by point, not the whole shebang, and decide with the individual points whether or not you want to agree with them and adopt them as your own ideas, or your party's, or your group's, your philosophy's own ideas. Because it seems like most of the people who want to use 1984 for their own agenda are not socialist, but they are anti-totalitarianism. So keeping in mind George Orwell's own philosophies, I just like to point this out and like to warn people to be cautious about how they use this book and the ideas. All that aside, 1984 is one of the greatest novels ever written in the history of all time. And dare I say, the future, too. I believe it will represent literature from the 20th century for centuries to come. Perhaps millenniums. I won't get ahead of myself there. It is, as long as we don't turn into this society. I think it's unlikely. It's very exaggerated, but again, it's not the setting that needs to be believable, it's the characters and how they interact with that setting. And it's for this reason that 1984 is so good and so scary. So many things from this book has made it into a world, whether we realize it or not. And I'm not talking about technology, I'm talking about terminology here. Big Brother was invented by this book. Thought Police, Doublethink, Crime Stop, Newspeak, all invented by this book. And on the point of politicians using 1984, just the other day I seen Ted Cruz in one of his debates use newspeak to describe the other party. And I think that was a fair use of 1984. It's just an idea, not the whole, whole concept. I got really excited whenever he mentioned newspeak. I was like, oh, that's 1984! Yee! And of all those things that have made it into our society, to our daily speech, yes, even Room 101. The most wretched creation of Big Brother of all. And Julia's parting description of it sums up the room quite perfectly. It is the final means by which to brainwash, to crack, to break all of the rebels and all of the traitors of the government. And Julia's words, the government can't get inside your mind, but there are things, your own acts, from which you cannot recover. It leaves an empty, charred, unfillable hole in your head. Room 101 isn't the government breaking you. It's you breaking yourself. And that's what is truly terrifying about it. Well, that's 1984, one of the best books that I have ever read. I definitely want you, I implore you to read it. Right now, go rent it from the library, go buy it from somewhere. Read it. Read it, it's amazing. You'll love it forever. Well, I'm Jakey Stief, the long-haired freaky dude. Thank you for watching this book review. If you want to see more great book reviews or cooking tutorials or headbanging to classical music, then might I suggest checking out my channel and hitting the subscribe button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you want to start a discussion about the book, feel free to do that in the comments section below. Reveal as many spoilers as you like and be as vulgar as you like. It is free speech down there after all, so say whatever you like. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. See you in the next video.